be pretty when it's got some finish on it. I could put a piece here that slides underneath, and then maybe fasten nylon straps to the underside of this. Bring them down here to R1. Cover this with some nylon cloth, and that will just hold that whole unit in. And really the last thing, other than finishing the spars and rigging, is I think having a floor in here would make this space more usable. I think a lot of times, especially a little bit of spray coming over the bow, be comfortable to sit down here with an elbow up on the rail, and it's just a little bit of a steep angle right there. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that, and I've got a little bit of a level, and I've got it propped up a 1/2 inch off the keelson, just picking a spot at which we can make a line just below the chine stringer and around across there. I think that'll work pretty well. And we don't want it to come all the way. There's going to be a mast step in here yet. So I think we can make a piece of plywood that fits that shape. Give me a little bit of a trick. I think that's going to do it. These guys will slip down over the mast step brace. It's 1 1/8 inch. That's only 1 16 inch. Round those off, glue them up, put some epoxy on, and I think that'll work. Well, it might be warming up enough to do some epoxy, and I've queued up a number of jobs here, ready to put the first coat almost on gaff and boom. Fasten on this underneath the floor here and put a coat of epoxy on those guys. And to move the mast along, I need to join 2 pairs, I think, and then those get joined. And so in prep for that, I'm going to sand this with 60 grit to give it enough tooth for the epoxy to bind on all 4 of these surfaces. That was a bit of a haul, but in addition to putting tooth across all 4 surfaces of all these pieces, came across the scarf joints. They're looking pretty good. So I think last thing before getting epoxy going is to countersink holes for screwing these guys in. Now let's start with a brush. 2 squirts epoxy, do the detail work. Well, I think it's okay. Got wax paper under the 2 joints. Lined up the pairs of scarves. We'll reverse one set, cut off on one end, cut off on the other end to stagger these joints when they go together into a single square block. And our spars. And then these floors. The forward area over the foam. And this deck board that slides down in between R1 and R2. Good protection on this plywood edge, which will get wet. I figured why not try to figure out these flotation straps. Doubled up the nylon and run a screw through it. The top part of this will fasten to the underside of that little floor once it's done. And then we put some cloth over this to make it more seamly. But here's the process. Well, there it is. That'll be good enough to get us going the first season.
This is where this is. It's like your videos look different than what was on the garage. So
Yep,
workshop,
this is-
so the massive.
This is the mast. It's from 8 pieces, scarf joined down to 2 now.
That's cool.
And so I got to flatten these out and then glue that. So that should be like 13 and a half feet, just enough to sit
Yeah.
down in the boat, which is really convenient.
Nice.
So what you should tell about the story of your boat floating floating down the street in
Oh, and
Hurricane Sandy.
to the camera. The next morning, and like there was literally boats like strewn everywhere. Like one of my Commodore's boat was like in a car wash, like a mile down the street. It was like a 28 footer. Well,
Sailboat?
Yeah. It's a big cabin cruiser. And the whole road of the sailing club was just like boat here, boat here, boat here, boat here, like across the street. We had to get like a crane that lift the boats up, and we lift them over the power lines and lay them back into our
Over the
like,
power
'cause-
line.
And like we had to call them like.
Here's the continued employment.
Yes, right. Yeah, right.
And a little bit of domination.
And making it happen. That's Paul, who's the wood turner, and who has been super encouraging on doing these videos. This is all his fault.
Oh, I've watched all, what are we up to, 22 now? Mm-hmm. I think it's a great documentation of the whole build, and it's something your kids or grandkids will watch eventually, I think. That's cool. I think it's for eternity, it's out there, right?
To be able to move around.
My wife always knows when I'm watching because she hears the opening music. Which I think is great. It's like watching a TV show.
Well, who's the guy that did the painting with the afro? What was it?
Oh, Bob Ross.
You could be the Bob Ross of boat building. We got a happy little mast right here. Well, look, we took a chunk out. That's okay. That's a happy little accident.
I actually had a Bob Ross reference in it.
You did, yeah. That's right.
I ran around over on the wrong corner of a piece, and like
Happy.
Bob Ross says, we don't have mistakes, we have happy accidents. This was a mistake. Seeing something kind of built relatively quickly, which my videos aren't, they're pretty tedious, but that's what I like about Bob Ross. He starts with a blank canvas, and in 25 minutes, we're going to be done.
And then when you try it, you feel inadequate.
It's just fascinating to watch these people because, I mean, some of them, they just, all of them start to starve.
He had like all of his fish saved. He had been smoking it, and he had all of his stuff saved up, thinking that he was going to live out here for months. And he didn't. It was like he was just far enough gone that he didn't realize
He
how
needed it
gone
now.
his body was.
Yeah, exactly. The interesting thing too is the psychological stuff those guys get
Oh, yeah.
It's
Nothing
physical,
to,
but
nothing to read, nobody to talk to, nothing to listen to.
all their demons start coming out of you.
All my
Or you start
personalities.
crying, thinking about all the things you wish you hadn't done, or wish
You
you
thought
had.
Split was bad?
Yeah, really, Paul was. My folks brought me that little lathe at my wife's property, and I was like hacking around on it, like making little things. And I talked to Paul about it, and he's like, in YouTube you can watch them, and if they do it right, it actually shines after they cut. I'm like, it's like a whole world here. I have no clue about. So that started us corresponding about how to sharpen these things and scraping versus a real cut, and it's been really fun.
And it's completely addictive.
Because you can take a project and start it and finish it in like 45 minutes.
Attention span thing again.
Yeah, I mean, this boat's going on 6 months. I'll take a few minutes and make final glue joint on this, hopefully, which involves cutting one end off of each of the two pieces. By cutting this end off this one, that end off that one, we offset the locations of the two sets of joints. There's one, and there's the other. Well, I've got it clamped along the edge of the bench in 3 places, relatively lightly, but see glue coming out all along this seam, and hopefully, it's a really important glue joint, we will have a square 13'8" mast blank to start with. Probably one more coat on the top side of those decks, and probably one more coat of urethane on the gaff and boom. Here's the mast. Pretty happy with it so far. Got second urethane, which will be final on these 2 spars in the floors, and that little stopper piece there that'll hold down the bow end of the forward floor.